morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on the planet, joining us from California, East Coast, Europe, all the way into Middle East, Africa, and Asia. Thank you so very much for joining us today on our conversation about wellness for all. Today, we are welcoming Amy McDonald, who has been the CEO, founder of Under a Tree for almost 19 years, to almost to a month. It's going to be the anniversary next month. And also with a fantastic career with iconic brands as the Enchantment Group, Miraval, Rosewood, and so many other. Amy, thank you so very much for joining us today.
It is indeed a pleasure. Thank you.
We had the pleasure of seeing each other in London last March for the World Spine Wellness Convention when you gave a stellar presentation about wellness, trends, boosting revenue, net operating income. We will cover a little bit into this later on. Then we saw each other at iSpa in Phoenix, which was great. And now we're back online because in 3 weeks, it's going to be the 8th edition of the World Wellness Weekend, reaching a record-breaking number of very, very close. We are so shy away from 9,000 venues in 155 countries. All of these venues are accessible on wellmap.org in 18 languages. So it's not just about saying it's a success, it's helping millions of people around the world to find near them in their city or around, and we're covering 2,800 cities in 155 countries to share ideas and activities for September 20, 21st, and 22nd so that they can experience fun, free, inclusive activities with friends, colleagues, and family. And on this note, my first question about wellness for all, since you have been working with so many projects and current projects, what are the key innovative activities or programs you have seen in wellness for guests, clients, or members?
Well, I think for many people on the call today, they will probably not be surprised at my response, but I continue to be surprised at how powerful and how global these innovations have become. So really for all types of businesses, hotels, resorts, spas, social fitness clubs, and even wellness communities without a hotel component, the greatest innovations that we're seeing, I'm going to break them into two pieces.
Go ahead.
We're seeing an increase in deeper focus on accessible, touchless wellness. And I break them out by thinking of dry social lounges and wet social circuits. So social being kind of the component for both. And so I'll just briefly talk about the two. So when you think about a dry social lounge, they bring incredible value to memberships, to spas with labor shortages. They're much more affordable from an accessibility financial standpoint, great for group business hotels. They offer like shorter duration. They're, obviously less expensive, but they're great for every type of business model. And they can be offered even when spa treatments are not available. So what I love about this model, besides the health benefits, is very little capital upfront investment, a quicker return on investment, and a much deeper net operating income, which so many wellness businesses are obviously looking for. And then wet circuits, which could be a hot spring. It could, just be contrast bathing. I mean, there's quite a variety of different offerings, but again, very powerful, social, don't require a lot of labor, support memberships, affordable to the community to be able to access something that has real physiological health benefits to it. And again, it's greater capital investment, but still long-term financial return to the business, and obviously an incredible differentiator. So those are the two main innovations that we are seeing that are supporting the guests, but also the business owners also.
Excellent. I'd like to go a little deeper into this question. Some people talk about soft wellness and serious wellness, maybe with more medi-spas, with IVs, with cryotherapy. Where do you see this and with the offer? Because we can see wellness being offered a lot at hotels, resorts, retreat centers. Um, but there's also a growing number, I know also among your clients, with day spas that are now embracing the component of wellness so that they have guests that become members,
Yes,
repeaters. So
yes.
would you like to touch a little bit about this? Because this is wellness is not just for the fancy hotels, the beautiful
Oh,
resorts. It is also accessible downtown, around the corner, not just around the world.
yeah, so that's a really good point. These particular innovations, and that's what I love about them, right, is that they can be applied to an office building, they can be applied to a community, but where we can make the greatest impact is obviously in urban centers, right, where people obviously need it the most, who might not have the time or be able to afford to go somewhere for their wellness. It's accessible and something that they can do on an ongoing basis. And when you think about like some of the massage franchises, right, when they first came on board, they made an incredible difference, right? Making massage therapy in particular really accessible. And so now we see franchises that offer the things that you just mentioned, IVs, hyperbaric, cryotherapy, compression, vibroacoustic loungers. And so all of those things, can support a business. Some can just do that, and some can still offer touch because at the end of the day, right, massage is still such a staple foundational component for all of us, but they can offset the cost with things that, obviously don't require labor and make things more accessible and affordable. So they just, basically we're seeing much more regenerative, sustainable business models across all the different categories because of these innovations.
Indeed, indeed. What about staff and community? Because so many times owners, managers think and focus only about the clients and the members. But wellness for all doesn't mean wellness for all who can pay. It's also about those providing the wellness experience. And as a consultant and educator myself, I have seen over and over the years that there is no meaningful, transformational guest experience if there is no meaningful staff experience. Also, if it's just beautiful words, verbiage in a literature, in a brochure, it doesn't work because the team doesn't feel they click with it. It's only for those outsiders, honeymooners, families, but their reality is far different from that. So, is there one striking example that you have where an owner realized that and said, I'll factor in the staff and the community?
So when we work with clients, and they want wellness and they want real estate, we basically say wellness comes first, and I'm going to talk more about that. And it is wellness for all. Last year, one of the greatest surprises was I went to a client in Mexico, in Hermosillo, so on the mainland of Mexico, and they were hiring us to do a project on the Sea of Cortez. But we went to their offices and they said, we would like for you to see our community called Las Riveras. And we're going to just, drive you around. Well, it's been around for 20 years. It has hundreds of homes. And I literally had tears in my eyes as we toured it because it's a wellness community, but they never used that name, right? Like it obviously was to support the community, but they didn't call it that, which is what we now call it. And so my greatest takeaway that touched me so deeply with what they had done was for them where they are in Mexico, safety and education to them translated to sustainable wellness. Safety meaning that they created an environment with a community that watches over one another and takes care of one another, but also the education piece, because in Mexico, it's obviously a very different country in many different ways. They felt if they could empower and give education to their employees and their employees' children, they would be able to elevate reduce crime, but elevate the opportunities. And at the end of the day, right, we don't think of education as something about wellness, but it empowers us and gives us purpose. And we go on and we thrive in our lives because of education. So their simple plan was all employees that work in this community also live in the community. And the education piece was that they built schools in close proximity, and all of the families go to those schools. And as the children graduate from year to year and then eventually go on, the actual employees, the parents, get increases in salary. So they're very incentivized to keep the families continuing to be educated. And it was really, for me, quite inspiring. And so that's an example that I often give, that giving back to our communities can be in lots of different ways. And in this particular case, it was through education.
And education is freedom for the generation of the people working at the property, but knowing that they do their best to provide uh, food on the
Exactly.
table. And I know that in the US, I've heard, I don't know if it's also true in Mexico, but a lot of people are working sometimes two jobs or three jobs
Or
to be able to just meet the expenses that they have coming
yeah,
every 2 weeks. And
yeah,
sometimes they know they are 2 or 3 paychecks away from bankruptcy. So knowing that their employer is not just an employer of choice, but also an employer with a vision that is not only supporting them as employees, but also their families and providing education for
yeah.
their young ones. It is remarkable. It is remarkable. I hope more will be able to do that.
The conversation that we're having with every project now, regardless of the location, globally, it's definitely not just coming from us. It's, it's starting with what is wellness, and that is one of the components of wellness. And to be successful, right, long term, there has to be that component that's integrated into the business model.
Absolutely. So let's go back to the start of the conversation. You are one of the best well-known consultants in Canada, the US, 18 years, almost 19 now in operations with fantastic projects, some day spas, some component for the wellness of hotels, resorts, even community living, which will
Yeah,
be another conversation for another time.
yeah.
What would be your best advice to owners, to directors, investors to ensure that their business is not just successful, but that they're also profitable and sustainable?
Well, I think you've heard me say this before when we were in London, but we all need to, regardless of the type of hospitality business we have to think beyond spa and traditional treatments for a variety of different reasons. Not as accessible, there's a labor shortage, right? And in order for us to give wellness to all, we have to make sure that the business models are sustainable. And so that's sort of our sweet spot of what we do when we work with owners. And I always think of it as when you are starting a business, whatever kind of wellness business, you're starting with a blank canvas, and you're looking at the reason why you want people to come, the values and legacy that you as an owner or investor want to put in, what you're going to give your employees, how you're going to contribute to the community, how you're going to support the land and natural resources. All of that gets painted in this beautiful, one-of-a-kind canvas. It's a piece of work. It's an art piece. If that is defined first, because all of those components are important. And so that is the business definition that needs to happen. And then you can actually put the frame around it. We find so often everyone, because this is what we've traditionally always done, we go directly to hiring architects. We go directly into starting to build and master plan when we have not defined the wellness piece. So if wellness is before the real estate, wellness needs to be defined first before more of the bricks and mortars, because the frame is so important, right? It complements the painting, it holds the painting, right? There's a beautiful dance between the artwork and the frame, but the artwork needs to be defined first. And part of that is what we just talked about, is the social impact piece and the environmental piece. And so all of those things need to be defined first before you start doing any kind of master plan or starting to do any kind of design work. And so that is the piece that we see happening more, but still needs to be happening a lot more, because that is the only way to know that your business is going to be sustainable financially, meaning that it can continue to support the employees and the community at large.
If we talk about
Thank you for asking
those
me that
examples,
question.
yeah, no, and I totally get the canvas, and I get the idea, the philosophy, and the big blocks into the bucket before you add the smaller ones. Um, do you have some numbers? Do you have some KPIs to show the before and after? I remember in London, you did mention a day spa in the US. You did mention also in Peru, the Sacred Valley. Is there something that you can? I don't want to twist your arm with numbers that would be confidential, but to give a taste of good things to come if people call you up and say, okay, I'm an owner, I'm a director, I'm an investor, I like the ideas. Can we talk about numbers? Do you have just a few to share today?
Yes, and it's easier to speak in percentages because I think it supports, and everyone can understand that. So we have traditionally seen, and I'm just going to use the word spa, more of a traditional spa where they are depending mostly, significantly on spa treatments. And for the most part, again, generalization, they're probably their margin, their net operating income or profit would be somewhere between 18 and 22%. Again, I know this is an average. However, we are now seeing, by bringing in touchless wellness, by creating more affordable, accessible business models, still with great health benefits, right? We're now seeing the NOI going from 20% to 30% or even higher. And if they're able to bring in a contrast bathing piece, some kind of wet component, we're seeing that even higher as a margin. And so those are much more sustainable, like up to, I mean, I'm thinking about Amayali, which is a, hot spring in Deer Valley in the US. I compared, if they only did a spa, it was 20%. If, because they have a hot spring, they opened that up not only to their hotel guests, but to the community, that
Yes.
that NOI was going to go up to like 38%. And if they offered above that other components to drive a membership that are like the touchless wellness components that don't cost a lot to build, that number was going much higher into the 40s. So it is really significant. I mean, that's just one example.
It's interesting. If I may, and please pardon my French, but I am. Um,
You get to say that.
Most of the time, we Europeans look towards the USA and Canada for trends, for novelties, innovations, because it's always bustling with R&D and with innovative concepts. And we're always waiting for the big trends to come from the Northern America. But from what I hear, which is the secret ingredient in the sauce missing to boost from 20% NOI to 30 or 40, these are things that we have been seeing in Europe for generations, which is circuit bathing. We call
Yes.
this thalassotherapy when it's seawater. We call it hot springs when it's thermal or mineral water. Um, Contrast bathing, we call it sauna. with Aufguss sessions when there is someone with a master playing with the towel and creating an atmosphere with music, with scent, and sometimes it's the Blues Brothers playing while you're taking a sauna, and
Of
sometimes
course.
yeah, and sometimes it's something
Or
much
going
more
into
romantic.
cryotherapy chamber and dancing because now they're making them bigger, right? Like this whole social piece is just fabulous.
Like we have seen also in Las Vegas. Is it at the MGM or it's another property that has a
Fountain Blue.
huge sauna in Las Vegas?
Is it the new Fountain Blue?
Maybe,
I'm not sure.
maybe. But
I was
anyway, this
I
is
was
something we've seen
excited
for
about it.
generations in Europe.
Well, I know. I mean, it finally came here, right?
Okay.
I think the trend that we're seeing that's here and globally is a recovery piece. This dry recovery, more coming out of sports performance, right? I mean, contrast bathing is part of that because we know physiologically what happens when you go back and forth between extreme temperatures. But all of the different devices, now IVs have become very popular, not just in North America. Compression, some of those Hyperice and Theragun type of devices, like
Yes.
all of those particular things are, I think, new globally. And they are, fabulous, right? Because people can buy them and bring them home. But they can also be offered in a social environment, which is what people are looking for, right? On a Friday night, what are you going to do? They're going to these social wellness lounges where they're taking care of themselves and drinking mocktails and being social. I love Othership. It's a Toronto-based company that just opened a second location in Manhattan, and it's just a massive sauna where you can do yoga, you can do all kinds of different classes beyond off-gas. And I think we're just going to start seeing more and more because they're so accessible. But these younger generations are craving health. They're not, right? There's a reduction in alcohol consumption in those generations, and they want to do something healthy and but yet fun and activated. And yeah, so it's an exciting time. And who knows how things are going to go, in the coming, certainly in the next 5 years or so.
Thank you for these clarifications. I'm conscious of time, and
Yes,
this
yes.
week with Wellness Weekend, we are launching a new series of posts, which are because we're 3 weeks away from Wellness Weekend. So we're asking people with social posts, where will you be? Will you be at home? Will you be in your hometown enjoying a staycation? Will you be using Wellness Weekend to go for a wellness getaway? We're asking also the question, with whom will you be? Will you be with friends, with families, with colleagues? What will you be doing? Will you be experiencing a new type of yoga, of fitness, group classes? So let me ask you the question, where will you be, Amy, on September 20, 21st, or 22nd to truly enjoy the immersion of wellness?
Well, Jean-Guy, because I travel a lot, as you do as well, and many people on the phone that have joined us today, I'm going to be home in my beautiful house in the desert, surrounded by extraordinary nature. And I plan to, as I have been, but I plan to, for those 3 days, to be home and to be alone. To have all the food that I need to prepare. I have a wonderful, gym in my backyard, and I have my dog. And so my plan is actually to go and have a much more introverted experience, much more intimate and personal. I have a family member who is really struggling and dealing with mental health. And so, like so many families, especially for the younger generation, our young adults and teens are really struggling. And so for me, I want to take this opportunity to go and into myself and to think about how to improve myself, be a better family member and parent, And, that's going to be journaling, it's going to be yoga, it's going to be prayer. But for me, it's going to be a very personal time. Yeah,
Mhm.
to hold my loved one in a space of healing, but also to hold myself in that space, in a place of compassion and forgiveness. So that's what I'm going to be doing.
That's it's very profound. It's very meaningful, and it's true that World Wellness Weekend doesn't need to be systematically about um, being with others. It can be also being with self, because well, Wellness Weekend will be on September 20, 21st, and 22nd. 20 will be World Cleanup Day, and people can join cleanups in their neighborhood, parks, riverbanks, beaches, but also they can be invited to do an inner cleanup through sleep
Exactly.
and nutrition and personal movement and mindfulness. On the 21st, it's going to be the International Day of Peace, recognized by the United Nations. So being at one with the self is a way to connect with peace inside and also peace in the world. And the 22nd will be a very important date for many, many cultures, for millennials. It will be the equinox, when we move from one season to the next, when we transition as the sun moves differently. So there's a lot that will be happening. If it is not any consolation, because being Amy McDonald and being with Amy McDonald is not something where you feel completely alone. There are so many tools, so many things you can do, and so many
Well,
things you can cook.
I'll be tapping into the rest of the world to see what everyone else is doing.
That's right. And you can do this with the website of World Wellness Weekend. If you go to wellmap.org, which is available in 18 languages, there is a thumbnail called Web TV. And on that Web TV, there will be, last year, there were 125 hours of content to watch. I'm not saying you should be glued to your screen or your any device, but you can choose and you can select if you want to see something in English or Spanish or something in French, if you want to see something related to sleep or nutrition or movement or mindfulness or
Visit some of my
purpose.
favorite countries and see what they're doing.
That's right. And you can scroll around on Facebook or Instagram to see different lives. There will be online sessions for movement and stretching that will be made accessible. There will be also a breathwork series that's going to be made available by Peter Cater. He is a 2 times Grammy Award winner, music composer. He won twice, but he was nominated 14 times, 1-4. So he is really, music is his life. And for a lot of people, millions around the world, music is feeding also their life. So breathwork series that maybe you'll be able to enjoy. Is there is there anything you would like to add at this point, or shall we just close and wish everyone a wonderful World Wellness Weekend, wishing you were here with us? That's a lot of W's.
Yeah, it's a lot of W's. I'm very grateful that I got the opportunity to speak with you today. So gratefulness is what I really like to leave everyone with, is gratefulness. Yeah, for
Thank you.
today.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Amy, always a pleasure to connect with you. Looking for the next time. And our thoughts are with you and with your family, as they are with so many families with a member who needs help, support, understanding, unconditional love to navigate complicated times. There were complicated times before COVID, during COVID. It's not because COVID is behind us that some people do not need that special
Yeah.
attention. So, wellness, yes, togetherness and gratefulness, absolutely connected. Thank you so very much.